Hey there. Today I'm going to take you through 4 different exercises, and the goals of these different movements are going to be to improve your intra-abdominal pressure and your awareness of how to create tension at the deeper level of your abdominal cavity. We're also going to talk about how to improve your posterior pelvic tilt, which is also going to help create a little bit more flexion in your lumbar spine, so your low back. Then we're going to talk about rib positioning and how to help keep your ribs down in a various set of contexts, whether it's going overhead with your arms, but also taking a breath in, how to keep your ribs closer to your spine. And then finally, we'll just go over a really simple exercise you can do on your own, which is going to kind of teach you how to associate tension through tension points. Okay, so I'm going to take you through different ways to create pressure in between your shoulders and your hips to support your spine that much better using different tools. So all I'm going to use today is a medicine ball, all right, a small hard medicine ball. This is a 10-pound ball. I'm going to use a big Vizio ball, and then something to hold between your legs. I like a yoga block. I like the size of it, but obviously you can do that with some sort of soft ball as well. So I would recommend doing these exercises in order, and obviously you do them in whatever arrangement makes sense to you, but I like this because it kind of goes through a slow progression. When I'm doing them, I'm going to go a little bit faster than I normally would. If I was working with a client, I would probably go 2 or 3 times slower than what you're going to see in this video. For the sake of time though, and just getting the main points across, I'll be moving through them a little bit more quickly. So we're going to start with some belly breathing, some intra-abdominal pressure breathing. This one's pretty simple. All you're going to have to do is lay on your back. Okay, and you're going to take that medicine ball with you. So you're on your back, you put the medicine ball on right below your belly button, okay, below the belly button, above the pubic bone. Hands are on the ball, okay, and then I'm just going to start to breathe in. And as I take an inhale, I want to try and fill up my belly as much as I can so that the ball moves towards the ceiling. And then on an exhale, I'm going to try and swallow the ball and pull my navel towards my spine. And it's as easy as that. All right, now a couple of things I'm keeping in mind as I do this is I'm adding a slight posterior pelvic tilt, so I'm rocking my tailbone between my legs a little bit, encouraging my lumbar spine to flatten a little bit more, okay? What you want to make sure you're not doing is like cramming your tailbone under and just tucking with all your might, okay? So I'm using about 20-30% effort to gently just kind of, here I'll show you, hey, I'm in this position, I'm just gently rounding my tail under, okay? And as I exhale, I'm pulling my navel back towards my spine. So I'm basically trying to encourage my lumbar spine and my transverse abdominis via intra-abdominal pressure to kind of sandwich closer together, all right? So I'm trying to improve the relationship of my spine and my abdominal muscles, okay? This is really simple to do. I do about 10 to 20 reps of these, and there are lots of ways to progress, but for now you just want to focus on how can I consciously pull my stomach down closer to the ground, okay? This is going to be in a more restorative, corrective context. Once we get to a standing position and we start talking about more dynamic settings, we start to do applied breathing or associative breathing, which is taking this breath corrective on our backs, where the pressure on the low back is actually at the lowest frequency, and then we try to apply it in a standing or dynamic context. But for now, you really want to focus on the basics, which is getting good at it in a supine position, supine being facing up. All right. Now, let's talk about the next exercise, okay, which is going to be the ribs down position. And we're going to do this with tension points as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my legs on a Vizio ball. And what I'm trying to create is a 90-degree angle at my knees and hip, okay? So I come down, All right, if the ball is too big, you just have to get yourself a smaller ball. I'm going to take the block, put it the second widest way between my thighs, and then I'm going to reach the ball over my hands, over my shoulders. Okay, so I have 3 different tension points. I have my heels pushing into the ball. All right, I have my adductors, my inner thighs engaging on the block, and then I'm holding this ball with bent elbows. Okay, so I have 3 tension points, but then I'm going to take my inhale. On an exhale, I'm going to pull my navel towards my spine. Okay, and that intra-abdominal pressure serves as my 4th tension point. Right, and I'm just going to hold, not letting go of any of these different areas of my body. Right? Now, something you might start to notice, if you take a breath in and let your rib cage grow up towards the ceiling, you'll notice your spine, your middle spine starts to come off the ground. On an exhale, I'm going to try and sink my rib cage towards the floor. All right? Now, this is called a ribs down position. My navel is down, my ribs are down. Okay? Now, keeping that tension on the core, I'm going to breathe in, take my arms back. Okay, and you'll notice I keep my ankles flexed, my heels driving into the ball, my adductors on the block, squeezing this medicine ball with my hands, keeping my rib cage down, my lumbar spine to the floor, my slight posterior pelvic tilt, and also maintaining my abdominals close to my spine. I breathe in. No part of my spine is coming off the ground. Wow. One more time. And exhale. Fantastic. Okay. So, you might have heard that, like, I was breathing loudly because it's difficult to do when you're consciously maintaining that integrity of your spine. Okay. So basically, if you think about the ribs down, a lot of times people kind of stand with their ribs poking forwards, which puts excessive stress on the erector muscles and the surrounding muscles of the spine and the back. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to neutralize the pelvis a bit by giving a slight posterior pelvic tilt. That joint relationship of the pelvis matches one of the ribs down position. So now my ribs are down. Okay, my tail is under me, my low back is flat. It's not as stressed. I'm actually giving a little bit of ease to my low back muscles and shortening and engaging my front abdominal muscles a little more. And now you can see my ribs are down, all right? And then my shoulders can kind of float up and my head will naturally start to find a more comfortable position over the rest of my body, okay? Versus living in this, what we call like an overextended position or a flared ribs position. And we could talk about this a lot further, but I just want to go over some of the basic examples of how you can start to, it's not even correct, but strengthen these sets of muscles and these fascial chains, so that when you're working out or going to exercise, you start with these, and when you go into a standing posture or you start standing up, you have more structural integrity of your body and more spinal alignment, and everything, your head, your shoulders, your rib cage, your hips, everything is stacked a little bit more over one another, thus improving the relationship and probably going to improve the outcome of whatever exercise or movement piece you're going to go ahead and do next, okay? So we went over creating tension with the different tools. We went over the intra-abdominal pressure, and then we just did some shoulder flexion with the medicine ball over our heads. I really like that exercise, taking the weights back, because it helps to create a little bit more space between the pelvis and the rib cage, which is where a lot of people are really locked, kind of tacked down to themselves, like their ribs don't know how to elongate away from their pelvis. So by doing this with either a medicine ball or even 2 dumbbells in each hand, you start to activate like your biceps and your triceps, which are going to connect to your serratus muscle and your obliques, And it's basically just going to help kind of lift the appendicular structure, which is your legs and your arms, away from the axial structure, axial being your spine, your pelvis, your rib cage. Okay, so we're going to use our appendages to help encourage a little bit of force transmission away from the spine and just help create a little bit more separation in the midline. So these are kind of the three main things you can do. If you want to have a little bit more fun with a way to get your abs warmed up, I would say this is the fourth progression. This is the most advanced one. You have got to be able to maintain your low back on the floor. Okay, so that's having a solid posterior pelvic tilt and also your ribs down. All you do, you put your hands here, all right, and then you're just going to pick up your knees, flex your ankles, and hold. All right, so it's kind of like a reverse tabletop or a reverse quadruped. And now all I'm doing, you might not be able to see it, but I'm pressing the knees and my hands into the ball really, really hard. And I'm breathing. Okay, another way to progress this further is you take the ball between your shins or knees, and same thing. Can you keep your low back, your mid back on the floor and your ribs down, pulling your belly down and still keeping your rib cage expanding as you breathe? Might even hold my legs, take them back. All right, that's it. Okay, so some more difficult abdominal exercises. A really great way to warm up though, again, because you're laying on your back, gravity is acting on you in the, not kind of like the weakest way, like it has the least effect on you because you're not upright yet and you're not going to make all these poor adaptations because gravity won't be pushing you around too much. The floor supports your spine, so your nervous system is able to kind of relax a little bit more and have a better understanding of what it's trying to do, versus when you stand up, gravity is pushing you around in a lot of different ways. And if you don't have these really like fundamental principles built into your body yet, you might begin to struggle and or make poor adaptations in other exercises just because your foundations aren't as solid as they could be. So you got to think, alignment is important, which is nice because when you're on your back, your head, rib cage, and pelvis is more or less on the same plane. But really, this is for intra-abdominal pressure, awareness of how to create intra-abdominal pressure, and then it's going to be your transverse abdominis, okay? And really understanding how to connect with your transverse abdominis to keep your rib cage down close to your spine, all right? And then at the same time, connecting to this posterior pelvic tilt, which is going to add a little bit more engagement to the area between your belly button and your pubic bone. So these are your exercises to do before you work out. Okay, I want to remind you to always try to bring as much awareness to your movement as possible. Don't rush through this. This warm-up could take 15 minutes. Every time you do it, you're going to get a little bit better, build a little bit more awareness, and start to introduce new experiences to your body and how it moves and functions. And if we can do that, I think we can achieve a more optimal performance when we go into the movement exercise realm. So give it a try. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good day.